Dustin, do I have to use a microphone?
Yeah.
Everyone has to use microphones.
Okay, so everyone heard that. If you would like to ask a question, Andrew has indicated you can interrupt him at any time tonight. You don't have to wait till the end. If you want him to elaborate on something he's talking about, or you want him to, whatever.
Move it along.
Move it along. You're bored.
Yeah.
So my name's Brittany Martin. I host this speaker series every first and third Thursday right here in this space during the semester. So tonight we have Andrew Zwerner. His background is pretty impressive and interesting. He was in the Navy, and then he moved on to the FBI. Then he started a company, and then he jumped ship and ended up in Arizona and reinvented himself. So I will let him tell his story. And if you could just give him a round of applause and welcome him to our space. Thank you.
Cool, thanks. Thanks. So the one of the points of direction that Brittany gave me was, okay, get up, you're going to talk about yourself, which I'm incredibly uncomfortable doing, and then you're going to talk a bit about your experience in entrepreneurship. And so I'll kind of work through that. I got one slide up there which has some bullet points or themes which I'll kind of be talking through, but just to reiterate, please, if there's anything I say that you want clarification on or whatever, I'm a super casual conversational person, and you guys are giving me your time, so I want to make sure I'm bringing value to your time. So as Brittany alluded to, my career, at least to date, 15 years since I finished college. This is the first time I've stepped foot on a campus in 15 years since I graduated in 2002. Is kind of a mosaic, and I ended up into entrepreneurship almost by accident. I graduated, I moved all over, I was almost a nomad growing up as a kid, and that sort of built an inherent flexibility in myself. So when I mostly grew up in California, I went to college in Maine, a small little liberal arts school called Bowdoin College. And when I graduated in 2002, if you remember, that's all good. I don't think the mic picked that up. I graduated in 2002. If you remember, this is kind of the lead up to OIF, or the Iraq War. So when I finished college, I had studied abroad in Sweden. I traveled all over Europe immediately after September 11th. So September 11th, I was a student at Stockholm University. I remember viscerally when that happened and where it was and the impact that it made on me and my life. So when I graduated, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had friends that were working in insurance or going to the Hill. I was a government legal studies major, and they were going to end up interning for some congressman, et cetera. I ended up going in the military. I played football in high school and college. I loved physical challenges. I loved teamwork. I loved surrounding myself by people who I thought were better than me, because then that would allow me to aspire to grow and to develop as a person. And I went in the Navy. I became an intelligence officer in the Navy, and I was and always have been and remain a geopolitical nerd. I'm 19 years old and I'm reading books on the Russian invasion of Grozny and Chechnya, and those are the types of things that when I realized what I want to do when I graduated college during a recession, so sort of gravitated towards what I was interested in. So I went in the Navy. My first duty station was with an aviation squadron. I deployed on an aircraft carrier in 2004 to the Gulf. In 2005, I spent a year in Seoul, Korea. So I was working on a watch floor, basically monitoring the North Koreans and reporting on a lot of their military activity. 4 days after I left, after a year in Seoul, they detonated their first nuclear warhead underground. And if you guys are paying any attention to what's happening over in that part of the world right now, that is a problem that doesn't seem to want to go away. From there, I landed at, or I was fortunate enough to have successfully screened, and been detailed to what is known as the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. That is for short DevGRU. I'll refer to it as DevGRU. DevGRU is a SEAL team that has been made famous from the Captain Phillips rescue and from Zero Dark 30 and other books and movies, et cetera. You're probably familiar with the classified name, which I'm still not at liberty to actually acknowledge or deny. However, it is a place where I spent several years, and it is the greatest leadership crucible that I had ever been in my life. So I spent about 3 years at DevGRU. I did a number of deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan and some other parts of the world. And that was a very formative experience for me, which has kind of informed some of the points that I'm going to get into shortly. I'm going to talk about my experience as a leader in building a company and leading people and getting performance out of people. So One of the things that was my biggest takeaway from my time at DevGru was the importance of surrounding yourself with high-performance individuals or building high-performance teams. You guys have heard the expression, you are a product of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So when you're surrounded by super hard-charging alpha personalities who just want to get things done, it's a very formative experience. I fancied myself that type of person, and when I ended up on my first deployment and I was in Ramadi, Iraq, in the very beginning of 2007, and the insurgency was full bore and it was effectively the Wild West, you have 2 options. You either figure it out and or you're on the first plane home and they're going to go find somebody else who will. So after about 3 years in that environment, it sort of spoiled me. There was no way I could go back to the regular Navy. I couldn't go to a ship. I wasn't going to go to the Pentagon. I wasn't going to go work at a staff job. So I said, that's been a wonderful experience, but now I want to go figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I was about 28, 29 years old at the time. I ended up going into the FBI. I was an agent in the FBI for a little more than a year. It was a very brief time because the cultural adjustment from DevGru to the FBI was about 180 degrees. At a place like DevGru, everything was about initiative, and this is I'm gonna get into that about when I built a business. It's figure it out, get it done, find a way, or make one. Period. There's no excuses. Drive it until the wheels fall off. Drive it until you break it. And if you screw up, apologize for it. Figure it out. Learn your lesson and keep going. The FBI, a wonderful organization with a lot of great people in it, is a very different cultural organization. It's bureaucratic. It's run by lawyers out of the Department of Justice, so it's very risk averse. So the attitude and the tenor in a place like the FBI, often, not always, for me, in my experience there at least, was rather than figure out how you can get something done, it was more figure out how you can't, or how could the rule be interpreted, so we should be more risk averse, or CYA if anyone's ever heard the term. That was not a place. I knew pretty early on that I was going to be giving my pound of flesh for a 20-plus year career. I was not motivated by getting to a pension or anything like that. I wanted to go do, but I want to go do cool shit. So I ended up having an opportunity. I apologize for the profanity. So I told you 6 years in the Navy. There's plenty of habits that aren't going to die hard. So I was in Miami, Florida, is where I was stationed with the FBI. And I had a friend down there who was also an intelligence officer in the Navy. He was a case officer. He went to the CIA's farm and did the school, and he and I were buddies once upon a time. And then I met up with him, and he'd started himself as an S Corp. And I said, what's an S Corp? He's like, it's basically me just booking my time as a consultant, and I want to go build a business. You want to come do it? I'm like, well, I know that I don't want to stay in the FBI forever, and at some point I want to leave Miami. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I was 29, 30 years old at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I would rather go with a dude who I liked and, had kind of shared experiences, backgrounds, and let's go do this, build this business thing, and we'll figure it out along the way. Neither of us had an MBA, and still I do not have an MBA other than experientially. I have a bachelor's degree from a liberal arts college. So let that be emboldening to you, because you are already well ahead of where I was, just evidenced by the fact that you're sitting here in this place at this time and studying what you are. So I decided, okay, I'm going to leave the FBI and I'm going to join this guy who had enough money from his early consulting work to basically pay us martyr salary for 6 months, and then we were going to be out of money. And I was a GS 10 in the FBI, which at the time it's like $40-some thousand a year salary. He's like, I can pay you a little less than that prorated for 6 months. That's what I'm going to pay myself. We didn't have wives or children. So we're like, all right, let's do it. Because I would have much rather, every time I will take the opportunity to jump into the abyss, this is just me personally, and figure it out and navigate along the way, rather than have the giant rule book handed to me with all the lines to color in and the 90-degree angles and everything neat and clean. So decided, okay, let's go be entrepreneurs. So this was the fall of 2010. We ended up, as a veteran-owned small business, becoming a defense contractor for the US government. So from 2010 to 2014, me and him, and then ended up growing and adding more people and growing top line and raising money. We went from about 100K in receivables from 2010 to 1.6 million the next year, to 6.1 million the year after that, to 12.3 million the year after that. And we landed at number 18 in the Inc. 500 in 2014. And all along the way, we'd grown almost 80 employees at the time, so we were 8 figures of top line, and we had raised money, 7-figure rounds of money, and we had done that first with friends and family, and then high net worth individuals, and kind of built a strong network and built a board. And midway through 2014, before you know it, I'm the chief operating officer of like a 70-plus person company that's winning these awards and is doing all these cool things. And again, it was almost, I had to, one of the things that I'll talk about too when I should accelerate through this, because you guys don't need to hear too much about my background. You guys actually would hopefully hear, what I'm going to provide a little more substantively. I taught myself the importance of like, okay, sometimes take a time out and then think about, have some introspection, think about where you are, appreciate where you are, right? And what you've done to get there and how hard it is to fight, and then go right back in to keep pushing forward again and again. I did that, I'd be sitting in the back of an MH-47 helicopter, seeing nothing but people piled on top of me with night vision goggles on in Afghanistan. And I do the same thing. I go, one day I'm going to be able to tell my kids about this. This is cool. And then like very quickly you're right back into it. You're hearing calls on radio. So I only bring that up because if there's one life lesson beyond entrepreneurship, one thing that I could tell you is that every now and again, take a moment and pause and appreciate your journey, because all your journeys are going to be different. And when you leave school and you go out, into the world and you do whatever you're going to do, you'll have a trajectory, and you go, this is where I want to go. That's I want to build this company. I want to do this, or I want to make this product. And then life's going to pull you over here, and then you're going to come back down that way, and then you're going to have to go. Like, that's just the way things are going to go. I promise you, with every fiber of my being. It doesn't mean don't have plans. Do have plans, but be flexible. So be versatile is number 3. So we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, back to the business. So 2014, we had this rocket ship of a business, and we raised a bunch of money, and we decided to expand beyond Uncle Sam, which was the exclusive provider of revenue to the company at that time. So we ended up looking at some of the things we did, which is basically service, although very highly technical, service-oriented for the government. We were doing a lot of cerebral consulting services on things like counter-espionage programs. So if you think of, I was a counterintelligence agent in the FBI. Intelligence has 2 aspects. One is offensive, which is collecting state secrets like the CIA does. The other is defensive, which is counter, which is preventing bad people, foreign intelligence services and hostile actors from taking that information from you. So we were working on a number of programs to advise the U.S. government on helping to protect classified technology and material. And then Edward Snowden came out. So when Edward Snowden came out, we were not an NSA contractor at the time. We had absolutely nothing to do with that. But when Edward Snowden came out, the entire government was taking a look at all of their programs. We said, oh my gosh, that's 18 months of pipeline we have that is now being stripped to the studs before new work's coming out. We need to pivot. So we were in a good position. We were cash flow positive. We'd raised a bunch of money. We decided to expand into the commercial sector to sell to Fortune 500 businesses instead of just selling to the US government. So we moved into Chicago. And at that point, I'm going to get to a lesson learned, we kind of got into a lurch of overextension. So all these great successes that had been born from our focus turned into, all right, great success, cash flowing positive business, bringing a bunch of money, start a new business unit here, business unit. We ended up almost running 4 different companies at the same time. So one was our government services business in DC. We had 2 commercial business units in Chicago, and then we started a company in Dublin, Ireland. So 3 were cash flow positive. One was a technology investment that did not come to fruition. We had to divest that, but I'll get into that shortly. Anyway, fast forward to January of this year. I was co-founder, chief operating officer of this company. Been with the company for almost 7 years. The company was me and another guy in a basement, and then we had everything I kind of described. And we'd hit an inflection point and had a number of challenges. And really kind of what happened for me was I took a look at my relationship with the CEO, who again was once upon a time a wonderful friend. I was a groomsman at his wedding, and said that we aren't really in alignment the way that we had used to be. The company had evolved and changed quite a bit. So I turned to my wife, who's an ASU alum, and said, I think now's the time. The company was potentially going to go through a merger. I said, now's the time for me to break away. It's been a great ride, but now I want to go. We've always talked about moving out to Arizona. So moved out to Arizona with my wife, our then 2-year-old, and a baby in the 3rd trimester on the way, and said, I don't know what I'm going to do out here, but I'm going to figure it out. And I didn't have a network here because I didn't grow up here. So I networked my way around. I met Brittany's husband very early on, who's a wonderful person if you haven't had the chance to meet Brian. And I ended up meeting a gentleman named Brad Janenga, I don't know if anyone knows Brad or Brad's name. Brad was the co-founder of a tremendous company here called WebPT. So WebPT basically does all of electronic medical records and facilities management software as a service for physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, et cetera. So Brad was a developer. His now ex-wife Heidi was a PT. They were a couple. They saw an opportunity in the market. She knew the market. He knew building software. They kind of were dating and also teamed together and built a company. Took them up through a very large Series B raise, and he made his exit. I met Brad earlier this year. We started talking, and I said, hey, what do you want to do? He sold me on his vision, and I said, that vision's great. What's your plan? He goes, that's where I would probably need you to come in. So if I have a skill, and I'll talk a little bit about, is translating vision into plan and action. Steve Case, the founder of AOL, talks about a vision is nothing more than hallucination without execution. So Brad, being a very successful and skilled entrepreneur, knew that, hey, this is the idea. He had a huge market, sold me on that. And then we kind of talked through, all right, let's build a plan, put the team together. He was also joined with the CTO, who was one of his first employees over at WebPT, who was a senior developer. And the three of us kind of together were the three legs of a stool. And we are now building, I won't pull you too far down this rabbit hole, but we're building what's called an application platform as a service, which is effectively an app platform for developers to rapidly build and scale software applications so they can take a 1.0 product to market at what's basically a 5.0 level of strength. So you're future-proofing your app with things like product pricing and promotion, customer lifecycle, billing management, et cetera, all the guts and plumbing of an app that isn't necessarily the why or the business logic of an app. Anyway, that's, oh my god, somebody should have stopped me. You should just give me the 10-minute signal. I apologize. That's my background. So everything was kind of happenstance for me in terms of how I got into entrepreneurship, but what I've looked at in my career, the things that I've enjoyed more than anything that are very applicable to whether you aspire to be an entrepreneur or you're focused entirely on developing yourself as an engineer. At some point you are or you will be working with teams. You will be part of a team, you will be led, or you will be leading a team of people. So the things that I'm going to talk about now for the rest of my time are going to be applicable to you in anywhere you go, because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, whether you're working on a technology or whether you're going to be, you're an accountant and you're working in numbers or finance, or you're a developer, or it doesn't matter. Everything is people, right? So people, until we get to the point of sentient AI, where people are out of the equation, by that point we're all done. But everything is people, so learning how to work with people, learning how to understand and be empathetic to and try to get performance out of people, and optimizing performance of people is going to be the key to your success really in anything you do. So I think one of the reasons why I never hesitated to jump into the abyss and kind of figure out what I'm going to go do was ultimately I knew I was going to have to go to people, and I'm going to have to interact with and try to learn about where there's opportunity and tell them a bit about myself and see where I could find, some place where I could bring value. So for me, the two things I've enjoyed more than anything in that kind of 15 years and that 17-minute transmission I just gave you was I've enjoyed leading people and building things. And the consistent element for whether I've been wearing a uniform or a badge or a suit and tie has been I've enjoyed doing those two things in the center of chaos. And if you're ever going to start a business, I promise you, you will be living in the center of chaos. You have to get used to cortisol, which is your stress hormone. And you will be constantly inundated with cortisol if you want to go out and build a business. You're going to start somewhere. So when you graduate, and again, I apologize because I know everybody has, and I wish we had enough time, but everyone has a story of who you are, where you're going, and what you want to do, or where you're going to go, and where you are in your life and your career. But oftentimes, when you go out into the workforce for the first time, you're going to have options. Some of your options might be bigger, more established, kind of steady and predictable, and some might be way more, oh my God, I have no idea what that's going to look like, but we're going to have to kind of figure it out. In your psychology, in a given moment might change over time. Having, you know, a spouse and children or other obligations is very different than I could live off of top ramen for 6 months. I don't, you know, I'll do whatever. So you have to decide your values, you know, empirically what you want to do based on kind of risk and reward. But risk and reward is present everywhere in everything you're going to be doing, right? And the higher the risk, the higher the reward, obviously. So I assume that everyone here listening to me drone right now is comfortable with a certain level of risk, and also you need to get some credit for your classes. And however, but I assume that that is sort of a natural kind of state of being for all of you. So my hat is off to you for that. So what I'm going to kind of transition to now is, I think you guys, for those who have been to these speaker series, or, you know, not, again, not knowing entirely what everybody's studying and learning about, you might have people talk to you about, or listen to podcasts on, or read books on, or study on entrepreneurship from building a product and product market fit and raising money and how to build a board and go to market and, you know, actually marketing messaging. I don't know if anyone saw Greg Head when he was here several weeks ago. He's absolutely tremendous, but he has his process on focus, on distilling a message, etc. I'm going to kind of be a little bit less technical on all those aspects, and I'm going to talk about now what is the underlying foundation for all of those very, very critical aspects of building a business, which is people. Again, managing people. So I put up here, I only put up one slide. Like, you guys are going to probably forget 97% of the stuff that I'll just transmit to you here tonight. Hopefully not. But if anything salient resonates with you, hopefully it's something from this slide, because these are 10, I tried to think through 10 aspects of both you yourself as a person, and then those that you're going to be leading that you need to be conscious of. So number one, discipline is greater than motivation. You guys, I don't know if anyone's heard of Jocko Willink. He's really kind of cornered the market right now, rightfully so, because he's a tremendous, very successful. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he's talking a whole lot about, he's got his company Echelon Front. He speaks to Fortune 500 leaders and executives, and what he talks about, which is very true, is that motivation is something that wanes. It ebbs and flows, right? Some days you can get up and you're like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go write this paper. I'm going to get everything done, blah, blah, blah. And then another day you might feel like crap. Oh, excuse me. You might feel like crap. You might drop the mic, literally. And you can't rely on being motivated, and you can't rely on somebody to motivate you. And if you're ever in a position of leadership and you have to motivate someone, that's not a good place to be, because it's not reliable and dependable. Discipline, however, will not let you down. So, sorry, I'm going to take a sip of water. If you stay disciplined and you know where you're going and what you want to do, when inevitably you fall, which I promise you will to some varying degree, sometimes it's a stub, sometimes it could be catastrophic, your discipline is what's going to help you get back up and move forward. Your discipline is going to not betray you. And when you are out there kind of navigating the wilderness as an entrepreneur, you're writing the rules. So you better be disciplined enough to go out and actually do something, because it's very easy to say, I'll do that tomorrow. Right? Or I can wait to, or I don't really have any sense of urgency. And often the abundance of time, I find, is the biggest impediment to actually getting something done. When you have a lot of time to do something, how many people have procrastinated on studying or tests and writing papers, right? It's just, it's human nature. That's okay. Be conscious of it and then consciously fight through it. So my next point, do it now. Brittany was asking me earlier, about kind of my background, the education, how I got into this. I go, I've learned everything about business by doing it, right? I have a bachelor's degree in American government and legal studies with a minor in economics. I couldn't spell entrepreneur when I graduated college and when I went into the military. I'm not kidding. Like, I had absolutely no idea. Had you asked me to watch Shark Tank when I was 23 years old, it would have been entirely Greek to me, right? Even at that simple level. So I learned by doing. And you're already in a much more advantageous position being where you are in school, because you're being exposed to ideas and concepts and thought leaders that can help shape and mold your approach to the world when you're done with school and you're going out and pushing forward in the world. So there's a saying, action beats reaction, and then General Patton had a good plan executed today will always beat a perfect plan executed next week. If there's one thing that you could leave here with, if you're ever thinking oh, should I do it? Or do, go, go, go. Every single time, go. There's a clock I saw that doesn't even have numbers on it. It just says now. 1 o'clock, now, 2, now, 3, now. I promise you, now, you're going to get things wrong and things aren't going to be perfect, but that's fine. That's how you learn. So, yeah, there's a, sorry, I evoke another military term. Has anyone ever heard of the OODA loop? OODA? Observe, orient, decide, act, right? It's an action loop. So what that means is you're going to, obviously I'm going to oversimplify it, but observe what's going on, orient yourself towards something, decide what you're going to do, and then act. And immediately after, it goes right back to observe. What happened after I acted? Okay, this. Okay, orient. So that is a perpetual learning and feedback loop. The best way you can learn by what you're doing if you're going to go build something, whatever it is by doing again and again and again. And I'm sure you've had people talk to you about product, about getting a 1.0, getting it out there and just doing it. That is absolutely critical. It's critical of every aspect of your business. Be versatile, speaking of every aspect. You're going to have your respective areas where you're very comfortable, right? Where your subject matter expertise and your knowledge is deep. Get beyond that a lot, right? If you're not comfortable with the difference between cash gap and accrual accounting, learn it. Okay, because if you ever aspire to be an executive, if you ever aspire to be in a position of leadership in an organization, the more you can communicate with people beyond your kind of purview or area of expertise, the better you are, right? So you as a leader oftentimes are going to be, it is incumbent on you to come over to that other person's side. It's not always, hey, meet me halfway. I looked at my job as COO then and COO now also. It was incumbent on me. I was a couple inches deep top and a mile wide, right? I needed to be able to speak to people about marketing, about UI and UX, about product, about finance, right? About legal and all of that stuff. And I was never going to know more than those incredibly intelligent people that we surrounded ourselves with, and I didn't need to. That's why they were there, because they're the experts and I'm not that bright. But if I can figure out enough to communicate with and understand concepts, then that makes me a better leader, right? Because everything you do has second and third order effects, right? How you're going to structure, investments and build a whole use approach. If you raise money, how are you going to go spend that money? I don't know. Talk to your product team, talk to your marketing team, right? Everyone's going to have different ideas of how, and you need to understand the interconnectivity of all of that in a business. So you might be studying one thing, and that's great, but no knowledge is wasted knowledge. Okay, so go beyond, be versatile, be a Swiss Army knife. That will serve you very well, I promise. Creating and fostering trust, that's a big one. Trust is sort of the mortar. Everything else is bricks, right? And if you don't have it, it doesn't matter how many bricks you have, it's not gonna all hold together. I could, but I won't go on and on and on and on. Mostly I'll respect for your time about how to do this, or I think how to do it, and then where it goes wrong. But ultimately, your people are going to need, if you have a team, whether it's you and a co-founder, or whether it's you and 250 employees one day, or if it's investors and shareholders, et cetera, trust is absolutely critical. It's almost an accepted thing that you have to have it, but it takes a very, very long time to build. You need to comport yourself with integrity. You need to do what you say you're going to do. Okay, and if you don't, once it goes, and it's very, 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 very difficult to get back. So creating and fostering trust. If anyone is really cares, I'll leave my email and stuff after. I got a million other ideas. If you have questions about, hey, what about? I'd be happy to follow up with anyone. Communication is the next one. The infantry in both. In Army, Marine Corps, et cetera, has this saying that's called shoot, move, and communicate. So if bad guys are shooting at you and you're shooting back, you need to shoot, you need to move, don't stand still, constantly be dynamic, and you need to communicate on the radio, right? Communication is absolutely critical because you might have the best idea in the world. Like the next, I was gonna say Uber, but that's kind of the next Airbnb might be sitting in one of these brains that I'm looking at right now, right? It doesn't matter how good that idea is if you can't communicate it to somebody who might give you money, right? To people on your team who might build it with you, right? And to the world about what it is. So to me, that's true intelligence. Like you could be a very smart person, but unless you can communicate that idea and get somebody to get it, it doesn't matter. So when I say communicate early, often, up, down, around, inside, and out, again, that's if you have an idea or if you're going to be leading in any facet You need to let people know what's going on in your mind and then elicit from them, right? Get feedback. Even though I'm standing up here talking, I promise when I'm in a work environment, I will elicit and try to get as much information back too. So if you ever raise money from an investor, the best thing you can possibly do is proactively push information to those investors before they ask for it. Push instead of pull. Because if you're waiting for people to pull from you, then sometimes people might think you might have something to hide, or I just push information, right? I'll do roundtables now with the team, just like we did at my last company, and it'll be, I'll stand up or we'll be sitting around the table, and I'll say, okay, hey, here's where we are with our financing situation. This is what's going on with the money. Brad, the CEO, and I are going out and raising some money. This is what this looks like, blah, blah. Who's got questions, right? People need to know what's actually happening in your business, and the product team will talk about what they're doing, and I'll ask questions, marketing, etc. Communication is absolutely critical. If you think you haven't communicated in a while, you probably haven't, so go do it, okay? That gets back to doing it now. Attitude and aptitude. This is really for when you're evaluating talent, right? When you're looking, what we did when we were looking to bring people on board, my last company and now, is I looked less at how cool that resume is. Oh, do they have all of the experience or the knowledge or the skills? And I look more at the person, okay? Because that you can't change, right? To a degree, like I'm not gonna teach a lawyer how to be a doctor, but obviously, but to a degree, skills, and expertise are important, but the person is more important than absolutely anything, okay? Because human beings are emotional creatures, and emotions are really fungible things, and they're variable by the minute, by the day, etc. You might have sat in traffic and you're in a terrible mood, or things are going great with a relationship and you're in an awesome mood. They can be anywhere, right? So if somebody doesn't have the right attitude and the right sort of character, and they're not kind of steady, or they don't have the right aptitude, or at least the ability to learn and grow and to get feedback and stuff like that, they're probably not going to be a tremendous fit for your team and for your company. So, you might be down the line or whenever this comes, but when you look, if you're looking for a co-founder, or you're looking to hire the first 5 employees after you raise money or something like that, look at the person. The smaller the team, the more critical that person's attitude and aptitude are. They have to be anti-fragile, right? They can't be, you want high performance, low maintenance versus high maintenance, low performance, right? So think of it that way. Relentless introspection is something that you should have at every aspect of your life, not just professionally, personally, your relationships, whatever it is. Always look internally, right? Something's messed up. First thing, mirror goes back to yourself. What did I do wrong? Or could I have done that better? Or how could I learn from this? Or anything like that, okay? When you do that, and when you do that openly in front of people who are on your team and expect you to lead them, you build trust. And further, you're authentic, right? So it is okay to show vulnerability or to show, hey, you know what? I own that. I screwed that one up. That one was my bad. And here's what I did wrong, and here's why, right? In front of your team, that's a good thing. Okay, that shows that'll create trust, and it'll actually show that it's a safe space for people to be like, okay, I don't have all the answers. I'm not, you don't want to be in a place where people feel like they have to show you they're pitching a perfect game. That doesn't exist, okay? Crises will happen. I had to confirm that crises was plural of crisis, not crises. Crises will happen. Stay steady. There's a term called the burden of leadership, and when you are, you are leading people, you have a greater burden, particularly if you are a part owner of a company. You have also a sometimes larger financial upside than a lot of folks in your company, so you need to own that burden and be accountable for it. And what that means is you can't have bad days. You can, but you can't emote it. The greatest compliment I ever received was from a junior analyst team member who I was standing at the water cooler with in my last company. I'm like, Clara, how you doing today? And she said, I'm okay. And we started talking, and she said, asked me how I'm doing. I'm like, I'm all right, I'm hanging in there. And she goes, I have never seen you in a mood that could be described as anything other than positively jubilant. And I said, well, that's amazing, because I've had a lot of crappy days these past few months, sitting in 90-minute traffic, blah, blah, blah. So the fact that she didn't know that, to me, was a compliment, because I didn't carry it like, your demeanor matters a lot, right? What you emote matters. People pick up on it subconsciously all the time. So when you're in a position of leadership, you don't have to love talking, you don't have to be they're all different kinds, okay? But people will read your body language, right? And if you're really high one day and really low the next, that's a recipe for disaster for your team, and it's a lot of recipe for inconsistency. So the best thing you can do, the best leaders I ever saw and followed were the ones who moderated, okay? Wins are great. Celebrate the wins. You don't have to be a robot, right? Like, celebrate the wins, be human with your team, and then when you have a loss, if a customer goes, we lost funding, oh my God, we just lost 33% of our revenue for the next 6 months because this customer cut our program. Like, you might feel like it's a near-death experience, and it might be, but you have to be steady, and you have to talk to your team about it and talk through it. So crises are always they're gonna happen in your personal life too. Right? Your VP of engineering might be like, my wife doesn't like it here anymore, we're gonna move, right? Or your director of marketing, she might say, you know what, this isn't what I signed up for, I don't wanna be here at this company. That's gonna happen, and you might have like a one of one in that position. That's a crisis. It's gonna happen, I promise you, and they're gonna be unforeseen over and over and over again. Stuff in personal life, stuff at work, stuff with money, etc. Stay steady, okay? Just accept it, and guess what? Resistance is a good thing. Right? Resistance is where growth comes from. Human beings, I think, sometimes naturally exist in a state of entropy, just thermodynamics decaying, right? If you are not actively working against something, you are decaying or getting better or getting worse, right? So challenges and crises will give you something to work for. Character is king. Hopefully that is absolutely self-explanatory, right? Doing what you say you're going to do, conducting yourself with integrity, expecting the same thing of your team. Right, having total ownership and accountability of any issues or things that you might have screwed up. It's absolutely critical because life's short, right? And whether you're at a company that you've built for 30 years and made a ton of money and you're a great success, or you bounce around or anything everywhere in between, at the end of the day, you're looking at yourself in the mirror in the morning and at night, and you live in your own head, okay? And if you do that and you comport yourself with character and you're a good person to other people, right? That energy, I promise you, I don't mean to get all, but will come back to you, and it is very, very critical for you to be the leader you'd want to follow. That's the best advice I could give you on that, is be the leader you'd want to follow, okay? And everyone has experience, whether it's coaches or teachers, parents, anything that you've had in your life of what did I respond to and why? Be that. Because I'm confident that other people will see that and want that too. That plays into my last point of transformational leadership, not transactional. The people who lead transactionally are not leaders. If you have a rank on your collar, like in the military, or you have a title next to your name, and it's a transaction, do this because I am this, you're done, hand over everything you have, fill it in a box, just get out, right? That is not how you lead, okay? If you're doing that, you've lost your people. Leadership and being led is a choice. So if people are allowing you to lead them, it doesn't matter what your title is or what your rank or any of that. People are choosing to trust you and to follow you. That happens at every level of an organization. I've seen C-suite people in large, very well-known publicly traded companies who are abysmal at this, because they've relied upon something, which is do this, and it's an implied, because my title is X and I hold power over you in your career or else, which is crap. And you're never gonna build a team the right way. And I've also seen junior people with associate or intern who, unbeknownst to others around them, those junior people are leading senior people by sheer force of personality or will, by soft influence. Not because anything on a chart says you sit under her here and he's that, none of that crap. Right? It's just purely by influence of that person. That's transformational leadership, not transactional. So again, if you're going to lead transactionally, people will just follow you symbolically, and that's that. You're never going to optimize performance out of people that way. Okay? You're in a boat, they're going to just kind of paddle this way. What you want is people paddling as hard as can in unison as part of a team, and that comes from aligning interests and leading them appropriately. So the last thing, in the end, it's all about people. I'm not a super touchy-feely guy, I promise, but at the end of the day, whatever you're going to do it with others, okay? And whether it's your idea and you're going to go rally people around to your cause, or whether you're going to go join somebody who's a leader and they expect things of you and you're going to go lead. At the end of the day, people are the operating system of every single team and every company. Okay, that is a tried and true, and it doesn't matter what technology or what product or anything you're working on. If you can't get that right, you hear all these stories about famous CEOs who are just borderline psychopaths and stuff like that with people. I hope that nobody aspires to be in that position. You see, again, look at what a company like Uber is now dealing with when you have somebody in a leadership role and that culture sort of percolates down. You have a real problem, and shareholders at some point say, okay, enough's enough, you're hurting the value in the brand. Okay, 43 minutes. I said I'd shut myself off before 45. I'm sorry for talking so much. All right, cool. Any questions, thoughts, anything, please?
Use the microphone.
Okay, yeah, my bad. Here.
It's on, right? Okay. There you go. So my question to you would be, me personally, I think I have a lot of good leadership characteristics, but I think that by far the biggest thing that I struggle with is discipline and time management. What are some discipline and time management strategies that you use or that work well for you?
What's your name?
Cole.
Cole. Thanks, Cole. I'm Andrew. I get up at 4:30 every day, like when the alarm goes off at 4:30. Now, I might snooze or 7 minutes reading email and doing that in order to actually come to. But for me, I find that sets the tone for my day because I don't necessarily have to, but I do it because then I'm going to walk my dog and then I'm going to go work out. And then by the time, my kids are up, then okay, I've been awake for a couple hours or I'll do reading or something like that. To me, that's my time. And it's also my time for, the earth is still at that point, right? Most people, particularly if you're a college student, most people are just coming to sleep at that point. So that's something that works for me. I've done that even before I went in the military. It's a matter of being proactive, and it's hard, right? When you're tired, it's hard to do that. But I will tell myself when that alarm goes off, this is the hardest effing 5 minutes of your day. You're gonna be fine. Just get your feet on the floor, get up, go to the bathroom, pee, and then get on and start moving. I swear. And then I tell me, in 5 minutes, you're fine. Right? I'm 37 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. It still sucks. It does. But it sets the tone because I feel like I have control over my mind at that point. And I know, okay, I've already, by the time 7 a.m. has rolled around, I've done stuff. Not much. Fine, I walked my dog and I worked out and maybe I read a couple articles or something like that. But I'm already ahead of it versus rolling out of bed and like, oh crap, I gotta, grabbing a bar and I'm driving it. Like then you're behind. And then I just, for me, it's a tempo thing. So that's big too. Also, I found setting goals, and I'm not talking I need to have, this net worth by this time. No, I'm talking all right, I'm gonna read 20 pages in this tonight. Little goals, no kidding. And then I do it when I work out. If I'm rowing, okay, I'm gonna quit in 200 meters because this sucks. And then I get another 200 meters and I go, okay, no, I'm gonna do another 400. I'll lie to myself and I kick the can down the road. And before you know it, you look up and you're like, oh my God, look, I've done all that. So I'll play tricks with myself all the time. And if I go to the office or I know what I have to do for that day, I'm gonna get these 3 things done by this time. I have to. It's not always done. And then I basically verbally abuse myself internally in order to go and do it. But you have to master yourself, and that's a process, man. There is no, okay, hey, I'm done, I got to figure it out. You're doing that all the time, and that's resistance. Like I talked about, having resistance and introducing resistance into your life is a good thing, right? Because it forces you to work toward it. Physical resistance, you get stronger. Mental resistance, tests, books, great, you learn more. Emotional resistance, being in a relationship where you learn to accommodate, and compromise and about other people and learn about yourself. Those are all good things, and they're continual until the day you die, right? So that's something that you set little kind of goals for yourself, establish a rhythm, and I know school is kind of sometimes come and go, but it's not hey, 9 to 5, but establish a rhythm and then be proactive, I hope that answers.
No, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Great, thank you.
Cool, yeah. Did you have one? Yeah. What's your name?
PJ.
Hey, PJ.
Yeah, so I was wondering.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Hold on. Don't get me in trouble.
Thank you.
Is it on? It's on.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So my question is, do you think that you you would have had, or you had the mindset to actually be an entrepreneur and grow a business before you went into the military?
That's a good question. So my mom told me when I finished college, she goes, I don't know what you're going to do with your life, but you're going to build something. I was 22. I had no idea to take that, right? And then I went into the military. I'm like, well, you're not going to do much building. You're going to do cool stuff, but you're not going to be building much. Like as a kid, I was the kid who gravitated towards Legos, and I'm not talking like random. I'm talking like intricate instruction Legos type of things and puzzles and stuff like that. And you know, my mom thought I was going to be an architect or something. So I've always enjoyed like let me toil, right, and let me kind of be on my own and kind of doing things like that. Again, I never thought about business because like when I graduated college, I wasn't even forgive me, I was 21, I was full of piss and vinegar. I wasn't even motivated by money, right? And it still isn't a primary driver for me at all, insofar as it just allows me to provide for my family. Like that's not what, you know, kind of got me. So I didn't even think about business, right? Like business is illogical. So I thought about doing cool stuff. And I'm like, I just would tell myself at 21, I go, I want, if my life's a book, would you want to read it, right? You've heard it. So like, I want to do stuff that's cool, if for no other reason, not because I feel like I'm going to talk about it at the bar, but because it's like I want to enjoy what is precious time on this earth, right? And whatever you're going to do, like I've again also kind of taken the lesson of finding out what you don't want to do helps find what you do want to do. Whether it's by field of study or whatever, like there's nothing you can do. How old are you? 18. Oh, dude, there's nothing you can do right now that's wrong. Take that in the right context, right? In terms of like what you're going to study or what you're going to go do, you cannot, like your aperture is like this right now, totally wide open. So you don't necessarily have to worry, okay, how am I going to, right? Experience and exposure, versatility, learn about as much stuff as you possibly can, et cetera. That's going to set yourself up for success to kind of really figure out, okay, entrepreneurship is for me, how do I want to build, what do I want to do, et cetera. And at 18, man, Moore's Law, 3 to 4 years from now, technology is going to look astronomically different. So when you're out in the workforce, I have no idea what jobs are going to, you know, or what that's going to look like. And machine learning is going to be old news, you know, by that time. But yeah, to answer your question, I figured it out along the way. Like I still haven't figured it out, right? Like I always told myself in the military, I'm gonna do this until this sucks, or until it's not fun. And then I got out, because I had the most fun I was gonna have at DevGru. And then I got out, and I went in the FBI, I go, okay, no, that wasn't fun. And then I went to like, okay, I'm gonna go build a business. Great, I'm right back into living in a sea of cortisol, like I was at DevGru, which every day is like, oh my God, where's this gonna go? How's this gonna, you know? That's living though. That's way better than like, have you ever seen Office Space? I mean, it's an older movie. I'm dating myself. It's like freaking working in Inditech, right? You know, I'm just like, I can't do that. I can't do that. If I fail and I go broke, I don't know, whatever, fine. I just wanted to go do something cool, and I wanted to have control. Like I wanted to pour white concrete, right, metaphorically speaking, and put bricks in place, and like I wanted a part of that. I wanted to write the book rather than be handed the book and just color in the lines. So building a business was like, well, I guess I gotta. It's better than, you know, hey, there's this huge business and here's your little part that you plug into. I'm like, I can't affect change there. So, yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from a student who's with us online.
Okay.
So they said, thank you for speaking to us students today. I'm at a crucial pivot moment. How would you determine to continue with a venture that has a significant competitor? At what point would you stop? When there's a percentage of similarity, or when you exhaust certain business strategies?
So without knowing all of the variables, what I would say is if I don't know whether to speak to the computer or speak to the camera or what, but what I would say is competition's a good thing. It really is. And I think about, sorry, as a sports analogy, I think about football. Let the other team know what play we're going to run. I don't care. We're going to out-execute them anyway, right? So you have to think about that. If you have an idea or a product or a business, and you have conviction about that, right? The presence of competition should not be a deterrent. It should be an attractor, okay? Because that means there's a market there, That means there's an opportunity. If you're relying on a business plan of being one of the only, no one will ever invest in that. No one's gonna, you need to have presence of prospective competitors. That means there's fish in the water, right? Or if you're the first in and you're a pioneer, great. Because if you do it right, other competitors are gonna show up after you, and they might out-innovate you because you could build your solution, and then the pioneers are often the ones who died of scurvy. So then the people who came after were the ones who benefited of the trails that were blazed from the pioneers. So I don't mean to self-defeating with my answer, but what I'm saying is, if there's no competition, go. If there's competition, go. It doesn't matter unless it's a bad idea. But if somebody has conviction about something, the market will determine, whether it's a good idea or not. But if you have conviction about something, don't analyze or worry about what competition is doing. I cannot stress that enough. Oh my God, I was just at a conference and these people had a booth and what they described was just like no, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Control your house, right? Focus on what is within your sphere of control and execute. That's the best possible thing you could do. Okay? Until it looks like 10 competitors went out and they're all out of business, well then maybe the market isn't there for it. Okay, fine. But there isn't, I don't think you should sit there and analyze, oh my gosh, somebody else or other people have another idea. I'm gonna go pens down here and move on to the next thing. No, keep pushing because you have no idea what's gonna happen to those competitors. And oh, by the way, if those competitors succeed, it's not a zero-sum game. If you're moving into a new market, it hasn't been defined yet. So it's not like this pie that only some people get slices of. That pie can grow logarithmically by the day often. So don't be deterred. If it's something you believe in and something you want to do and you have a plan, go execute, right? And out-execute your competition. Or even maybe they might do well and that could benefit you because it's establishing a new beachhead in a market. Do they write an emoji or anything back or thumbs up or?
They said thank you.
Cool, all right.
Okay.
What's your name?
I'm Fram.
Hey, Fram.
So my question is, what sort of resources have you taken advantage of to be versatile and branch out from your areas of expertise?
Podcasts are awesome because I spent a lot of time in the car when I lived in Chicago and DC, and I listened to podcasts like crazy. I wish I were around 15 years ago. Books are great sources of knowledge too. I talk to people. No kidding. So anywhere I can find somebody who is doing something different than me, which is about anyone, ask people about that. What are you doing? What are you working on? What's cool to you? No knowledge is wasted knowledge. You could be sitting on a plane next to somebody for 3 hours and you could headphones in, not talk to them fine. Sometimes I feel like doing that actually a lot. But when you find out what somebody's doing or what they work on, you have no idea if 3 years later, that conversation might give you one nugget that is going to help you in a conversation relate to somebody else that you need to relate to. So be curious, be unapologetically intellectually curious, right? And it's good to continue to excel in and learn in your craft. But I swear there are so many VC firms out there who run podcasts and they talk to executives in their portfolio companies, and then there's marketing podcasts and SaaS metrics and there's all these different things. If you're interested, again, startups, so I assume you are. Those are a tremendous resource. You can passively take a lot of that stuff in, right? When you're driving or when you're sitting somewhere. I would ask friends too about good books or stuff that they read and anything. I would kick over kind of every stone you can. People are always going to be the best because interactive knowledge, conversations, you're going to retain a whole lot more than something two-dimensional on a book often. And if you're like me, your mind wanders quite a bit and you have to fight it to get it back on. But I just say stay. It's the kind of the same, the old usual suspects of where knowledge lies. We're on a campus. It is ubiquitous here, and often the best is going to be in the minds of other people around here. So it's finding as many people, and again, the military helped me with that because it's such a mosaic of just different people from all different walks of life. I learned so much about different people you know, from being in a place like that. So put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable or you're with people who you do not have much in common with, because that is a tremendous learning opportunity. You know, and always ask questions. People want to talk about themselves, right? So give them the opportunity to talk about themselves while you're learning at the same time. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, off. You almost got caught. Other questions? Guys, get your nights back? Anything else online? No, we just had one. Okay. Going once? Twice? Okay. Brittany has my contact information, or if anyone wants to stick around, I'm good. My wife's not expecting me home for a little while. I told her this would go a little while longer anyway. But please, you know, feel free to come up, you know, ask questions. If hopefully this was of some value to you at all. I appreciate you giving me your time, because I know there's plenty of stuff you could be doing. I hope the credit you guys got is good too. But thank you very much. I appreciate your time.